Okay, so I regularly get asked what's the difference between 4G and 4G plus, and how come you get it in some places and how come you don't get it in other places. I've put together this video just to help explain it with some visuals, as it's easier than trying to explain it solely verbally or in written emails. So the first thing you got to bear in mind with 4G is that there are different bands, and within each band there are channel sizes. So typically in the UK and Ireland we see bands B1, B3, B7 and B20. These are all at different frequencies, and the frequencies can affect how far it travels. So for example, an 800 megahertz channel will probably go much further than a 2600 base station. So in rural areas you might see more B20s than you would see B7s and things like that. The other thing as well is that operators can choose between a channel bandwidth of 5, 10, 15 and 20 megahertz. The channel bandwidth relates directly to how much speed you can get from a channel. So like if you have a 5 megahertz channel, you're not going to be able to get the same speed as a 20 megahertz channel. Other things come into play in terms of modulation of the data, in terms of how much data you can squeeze through each of these sizes, but as a general rule of thumb, a 5 is going to give you less than 20. Why have different sizes? Well, if you're in an urban area and you want to have lots of little, say, B7 cells, because you have lots and lots of users using lots of smartphones, you're looking at lots of kind of 5 megahertz channels spread out so that you can kind of give a more fair usage. Whereas if you're in a more rural area, and you want to give kind of more speed because it's a rural broadband sort of stuff, you might be looking at a 20 megahertz channel. So this just basically gives the operators the ability to make their network work for their customers in a given area. So you'll see different sizes. If you're in this video, I'm talking about 4G plus, so you're typically chasing the 20 megahertz channels. Usually that's what you're kind of looking for, because you're basically looking for speed. If you're interested in 4G plus, you want speed. If you're just interested in getting connected to the internet for something very simple, and 4G plus isn't going to make much of a difference. So we're going to use a real world example for this. So I've taken one of our N3211 devices, and our devices are capable of scanning to see what's available. So without a SIM card, we can scan and see what operators are in the air. To make this nice and neat example, I've basically ran it from an internal location indoors with one of our little 2.5 dBi stick antennas. I'm not using an external antenna here because it would just create lots and lots more data. So in this scan, we can basically see 4 carriers in 4G. One of them is eMobile and 3 of them are 3 Ireland. So proceed. Now what I'm going to do is get our device, which is a category 4 modem in it, to connect to each of these 3 Ireland bands because I have a 3 SIM in it, and we're going to do a speed test on each one to see what we get. So if our device had connected to LTE band 1 for 3 Ireland and we did a max speed test, which we've seen here, you get a 15 megabits per second download. Now these tests are just quick download tests using our dedicated iPerf server in a Dublin data center, so they're quite accurate. I know people say you get different speeds at different times of day, things like that. This is mainly just to point out that on different bands you can get different speeds. So band 1 we're getting about 15 megabits per second. Band 3 we're getting approximately 10 megabits per second. Now you'll notice there's a change in speed, and even though the bandwidth is bigger on the band 3, and that could just be down to local issues like more users connected to this band. When phones or devices connect, they will often connect to the strongest signal, and that's quite important. So in these three Ireland examples, you'll see minus 66, minus 85, minus 74. If a phone was trying to pick which was the best one to connect to, the minus 66 with the RSRQ of minus 7 is the best one. It would be the one it would be thinking this is the best channel to connect to. So sometimes when you are connecting to sites, having locking with our device onto, say, a lower strength band can get you better speeds, as you can see in this example, because less devices will move towards it. Now that doesn't mean an operator can't push them to different bands and things like that, but basically typically most people's phones in the position I be located in now will be migrating towards the B3 or the B20, and that could possibly explain why the B1 is faster. So if you're on a site or a location and you're seeing limited speeds by allowing the modem to connect to the strongest signal, sometimes it's better just to try the different bands and try locking it to that particular band to get you a slightly better speed. So for the B20, we can see here we're around 10 megabits per second as well. So it's roughly the same as the B3 in terms of speed. So in all, basically, if we were connected to any of these three bands, we'd be looking at a max speed of 15 or roughly 10 on the other two. So with a category 4 modem, you're using 4G and you're locked to a single channel in a single band. So your speed will be limited to the performance of that channel. So with our device, if you picked a B1 or pick B3 or B20, these are the maximum speeds you'd be typically seeing. Now for most people, this is fine for light stuff if you're not doing anything heavy. But if you're chasing speed, if you really need more speed, this is where 4G plus becomes important, and where understanding how to get it consistently is really important. So in a normal 4G, as I was saying, you're connected to a single channel. What we want to do in 4G plus is use carrier aggregation. So what carrier aggregation is that it connects to multiple carriers, and they call them subcarriers, for the same operator. So here we have 3 for 3 Ireland. And it's basically the modem is going to connect to all 3 to combine it, if you want to imagine, into a super channel of much wider bandwidth. So there's a Huawei B818 modem. It's a category 19 4G modem. I've located this device indoors beside our device, so it's in the same kind of indoor location, seeing roughly the same channels and things like that. We sell these as an accessory. It's for people who are basically chasing 4G plus. When I do that and I plug it into the WAN port of our device and run a speed test on it using the same iPerf server, I'm getting 46 megabits per second. So we've gone from where we were on, say, band B1 at 15 megabits per second to where we're now getting 46 megabits per second. Now that's where you have 4G plus. It's kind of bringing all those carriers together, bringing all these 3 carriers together to be able to deliver us this 46 megabits per second. So in summary, basically, you can see the category 4 here at 15 megabits per second. That was the best speed we could see on band B1. And with carrier aggregation, you can see 46 megabits per second. So if you're chasing speed, you want 4G plus. Now, it is important to note in this scan, where we did an internal scan, if we were using an eMobile SIM, we would see no difference in speed between the 4G category 19 modem, the Huawei modem, and say our category 4, because there's only one channel available. And that's why it's really important when you go to a site to run a scan with our device to see what's available, because depending on what's available, you may or may not be able to get carrier aggregation. So before you buy any SIM, scan to see what's available. So if you're interested in 4G plus, what you really are looking for is more speed. And if you're looking for more speed, to get that more speed, to get as many subcarriers as you can, you're going to want an external antenna. 4G plus can combine up to 5 subcarriers with a max bandwidth of 100 megahertz. To get as many carriers as possible kind of into the net, you basically need an external MIMO antenna. So this is an example of a site scanned in Northern Ireland where we have an external MIMO antenna. And what you can see is, like, you can see loads of carriers compared to our indoor example a few minutes ago. But what you'll notice is EE here have this massive block of 20 megahertz channels in B3. And what that basically tells you is that if you turn on 4G here and you connect to EE just with a category 4 modem, you'd be just limited to one of these channels. But if you went with a 4G plus modem and plugged it into, say, the WAN port or the 3211, you'd be able to combine all these together, 5 of them together, give you 100 megahertz in terms of bandwidth. So you'll be looking at speeds orders of magnitude higher. Well, maybe not orders of magnitude, sorry. Orders higher than a single channel. So if you're chasing 4G plus, go for the external antenna, scan to see what's available, because if you look at this site here with the E, you will get 4G plus, but with Vodafone we only have 1, 2, 3. With O2 we've only got 2. I can only see 1, 3 channel here. So there'd be no point in spending money on a 4G plus modem if there's no availability of carriers to carry it. So scan, every location is different. There's no one location that's, you know, kind of like always going to be the same. So scan at every location, figure out what's best. Thanks for your time.